So you are welcome once again to the Java Academy. So like I had promised, we'll be taking a look at creating a banking application. So and then we are starting from the scratch now. Don't forget from based on this. So basically, this is going to be like the project structure that we are going to be following. So there's going to be a controller layer that talks to a service layer, and then a service layer that talks to a repository layer, which in turn uh, talks to a database. So and for this example, we are going to be making use of MySQL. So repository gives us access to save, to perform a number of database operations and so on like that. And then the service layer here is going to be where we are going to be having our business logic, and then the controller layer is what we are basically going to be exposing to the to clients. So to get started, we are going to be creating a new project, and then I will go start.spring.io, start.spring.io. So this gives us an access to a web client where we can initialize Spring projects. So to get started, I would be using Maven as my build tool. Of course, I'm selecting Java. I'm also selecting Spring Boot 3.1.0. So I have to then fill in the project metadata. So here I will just fill in some information. I will just pass in here moves done. You can also fill in whatever works for you here. And then the artifact ID. Here I will just call it the Java Academy Bank. Okay. So I'll just call it building a demo banking application. So we have our Java 17 suffices for what I need it for. And then to add dependencies. So here the dependencies I need Lombok. Okay. I need the Spring Web. I need JPA. I need my SQL. Yeah, so I believe this should work for now. Okay. So basically, once you are done with these four dependencies, I hope I've not missed out anything. So, but then once you are done with these four dependencies, just click generate. Okay, so it generates a zipped folder as you can see here. Then basically you just need to unzip this folder and then open it in your IntelliJ IDEA project, IntelliJ IDEA ID in your IntelliJ ID. So then the next point, what I'll just do is, in my case, I have a paid version, an ultimate version of IntelliJ. So what I'll just do is I'll create a new project from here. This is another way to create a, a new Spring Boot project. So I select Spring Initializer from here. So it's basically the same APIs that you'll be calling here that are called in the web version there. So yeah, I'll just give it the same name that I've made use of. I'll just call it the Academy Java Academy Bank. Okay, then here I'll give this move done. So Java 17, I'm using JDK 20. Yes, this will be Maven. Okay, click next. I'll use the necessary dependencies. So I'm using Lombok, Spring Web. I'll be using MySQL. I'll be using JPA. Okay, so and as we learn further, when we need more dependencies, so we are also going to be importing them into the project. So at this point, I will just click create, and then I would allow. So yes, this same window. Okay, so I'll just allow all of this moving to resolve the dependencies. So once that is done, I believe you are good to go, and then we can get started with actually coding something. Okay, so while that actually works, we can explore the project structure here. Oh, okay, so it's still download. This guy is still downloading, so I'll just give it some minutes while it downloads. Okay, so idea is just to take some minutes. Shouldn't take too long. So depending on the strength of your internet. So yeah, okay. So at this point, we are done with importing and downloading our Maven dependencies. So so if you basically this is what you should have. If you open the pump.xml here, you can see all of the dependencies that you've actually added. You can see JPA, Spring Boot Starter Web, you can see MySQL connector, Lombok, Spring Boot Starter Test, and then a host of other guys. So without wasting much of your time, so I would be diving straight into the code. And then the first step is to add some base packages that I'll be needing. So and to so basically, let me add some of these packages. I need a controller package. Um, Here I need a an entity package. So here I need a repository package. Here I need a service package. So here as well, I'm going to be needing a package which I would call hotels. As you would see later on, you will see some of the things that I'm going to put in here. And then lastly, I think I need a DTO package. Okay, so let's get started now with creating our first entity class. So I would um call this guy bank, or let's call it user. So here our user is basically going to refer to our banking customers. So in here we are going to have a number of attributes that we expect a normal banking user should have. And then yeah, so the first attribute would be private long ID, and the next one would be private string first name, private string last name, private string other name, and have a gender as well, and have an address, private string state of origin, and private string account number. So let's not forget that this account number is going to be generated on creation. Okay, so when you are creating a user, you are also going to be auto generating the account number from within your code as well. So we would also would set up a an account balance, so of type big decimal. Account balance. This guy should have an email, private string email, private string phone number, the private string alternative phone number. Have something like private string status. So here I'll just add private local date time. We created that, and then private local date time modified hat. Okay, so these two guys basically would help us keep track of timelines, like when you so each user would have the date each user is created is going to be saved. Any date you also make a modification, the last modification you make would also be saved. So here I will just add an annotation here. I'll call it at creation timestamp, and then here I would add another one and call it at update timestamp. Okay, so once this is done, something else I need to add here is a number of annotations. Let's get started with at getter. Okay, at setter. Okay, so getter and setter basically are annotations that helps us to replace writing boilerplate code like writing your getters and setters. So with these two annotations, we are able to get access to setters and getters for each of these instance variables. Okay, without having to actually manually type them on our own. So one more thing I'll need is a no ask constructor. So like I've just to go over this again, basic object-oriented programming. So when you create a class, there is by default a no argument constructor. Okay, so but then the moment you add a parameterized constructor, you no longer have access to the no argument constructor. So if you need a no argument constructor in that case, you then need to create a no argument constructor. So here I would also add all argument constructor. I would add a builder, which is so this builder is what I'm going to be using to create my objects here. And then yes, how can I forget this? At entity, okay, and then at the table, just use the set the name of this guy to users, and I think we're good. Okay, so one more attribute I need to add here is as ID. So this ID is just the primary key that uniquely identifies this record here. So if you watch this trend here, so basically what we are actually doing here is we are defining the fields that will be created in a database. Okay, so but then we are actually defining those fields using Java constructs. So we are using Java syntax to create these guys. And then thanks to JPA, which is a Java Persistence API, which and with this attribute here, we are now able to convert all of this Java syntax um, into the corresponding MySQL database tables or database fields as well. So here I would also have a generated value. Strategy is generated.identity. Okay, so yeah, I think we are done with this. So before we move any step further, the next thing I need to do is to create a database, right? Okay, so what I would do now is open Workbench. You could also do this using PostgreSQL as well. So it makes no difference. It's all going to work. Okay, so here I'll create a new database and then I would call it the or let me just call it TJA from the Java Academy underscore bank. Okay, click apply and then good. So we have our bank here. Okay, so having done that, the next step is to map that database we've created into this application. So to do that, so basically you have to configure that particular database you've created into this application. So how do we do that? So you go into your application.properties directly through resources, right? Okay, so from resources, you go into this guy and then you add in a number of keys and values. So the first one I would add is spring dot data source dot URL. So here we are actually adding the link to the particular database we are going to be making use of. And let's not forget that this is the name of the database, TJA underscore bank. So here we just add JDBC, MySQL, and then it will be local host 3306 slash TJA underscore bank. Okay, so we've added the database URL. The next point it would now be spring.datasource.username. In this case, I'm using root. Okay, spring.datasource.password. So I created a password just for this project, and then I'll call it Zilia 2023 and then dollar. Okay, so this I expect that you will replace this with the correct password of your own system. Okay, so then apart from that, we need a spring.datasource dot driver dot class name, and then this time I'll just choose this com.mysql.cj.jdbc.driver. Then the last thing I would just want to add here is jpa.hibernate. Yeah, I'll choose updates. Okay, so just to test this, let me run the application at this point. So if I'm able to successfully run this application, I should um, I should have a corresponding database table in that database for this particular guy I've created. So yeah, the application is up and running on port 8080. So basically, I'll just check. Let me check this guy here. I think I need to refresh. Yeah, I need to refresh this guy. So if I come over here, so you can see now that I've created these tables. Okay, and then in here you can see that the exact values I have here in this user class are basically inside this guy. Okay, so at this point we've gotten to, yeah, we've been able to achieve something now. So we've been able to convert this Java class into the corresponding MySQL MySQL field, okay, which is being handled by JPA for us. So after doing this, I think the next thing I need to do is to create a repository. Okay, so the repository basically is an interface. So I'll just call it the user repository. Okay, so this guy is basically going to provide me with methods for talking to my database. Okay, so it's going to extend JPA repository. Okay, so from here, what the next thing I'm going to do is to bind this repository to a particular entity. So to do that, you just add, it's going to take a generic and then you add in the entity, the name of the entity you want to bind it to. And in this case, it is what? The user entity that I've created. Let's not forget the user entity from here is what I'm binding it to. And then after that, I'm also going to be adding the information about the primary key that I created, which is type long. So I'm saying that this particular user repository is going to help me manipulate my database field, or this database table called user, whose primary key is of what? Of type long. Okay, so at this point, this guy is going to be just going to be like this. Okay, so then the next point is I want to create a DTO. So you might want to wonder, why do I need a DTO? So basically, DTO is data transfer object. So with DTO, at every point in time, it's not everything in this class that I want to expose to users and so on like that. So I just want to expose quite a few things. So a D2 helps me to do that. So apart from that, it helps me to create my objects. It helps me to separate my the object creation from the entity itself. So here I'm saying that while the entity is going to take charge of the fields that are being saved into the database, this D2 is actually going to help me in collecting data from the user to be sent to the database. Okay, so to create that DTO, I'm going to just copy a number of fields. Take note, I'm not copying the ID. So just scroll down. So up to status. Okay. So don't forget that the created that is due to this um, annotation here. So when you create that object, the particular time, the specific time that you created that object is going to be saved into your database without any input from your user. So likewise, the updates timestamp as well. And let's not forget our account number as well. We are not expect as well as the account balance. So we are not expecting the user to actually pass in those two guys. So let's me open this guy. I'll just call it user user request. Okay. So in here I'll just add this. So these two guys, like I've mentioned before, we are going to be auto generating the account number. So it's not the user who passes in or who dictates the account number he wants to be given, but rather the bank auto assigns an account number for him. So I'll remove the account number from the DTO class. So likewise, the account balance is going to be, I'm going to be, for this example, I'm going to be assuming that on creating your account number, you are going to have a zero balance. So nothing is going to be account in your account on creating the account. So yes, this is basically what I'm going to have in my DTO. And then here I would also have the number of annotations. I'll add at data, add the at builder for creating objects, at ask constructor, at no ask constructor. Yeah, so I believe I've not missed anything out. Okay, so this is good. We've created the DTO, this and so on. So yes, inside this DTO as well, I want to also define the response as well. So in this application, I want just a single response for every single service. So no matter the endpoint you call, you are always going to have a uniform response format. So that's what I'm just going to make use of here. Okay, so I'm just going to create a new class. I'll call it response, or let me call it bank response. Okay, so this bank response, I want it to be in this format: private string, response code, private string, response message. Okay, then I'm also going to have something else. I'll call it private data. It's something, a class I'm going to create on its own, or let me call it account info. Call it account info. Okay, so I want to make use of composition here. So where a class actually derives the capabilities of another class. So here, let me create this class called account info. I'll call it account info. Yeah, I'll just call this guy. It will have this fields: private string, account name, private string, account balance, private string. What else am I missing? Account name, account balance. Am I missing something? Yeah, okay. If I remember, I would just come back to add it. So private string, account name, account balance. Let me go back to my entity or this user request and see if there's anything I might want to add. Let me go to the entity, check things out. Account number, account balance. Yes, let me add account number as well. So I'll just add account number. So again, I'm going to add some annotations at data, at builder, all lags constructor, at no, sorry, at no ask constructor. Okay, so let me check this bank response again. Okay, I've not added any annotation here. So I'll just say add data at no ask constructor at all ask all ask constructor builder. Okay, so I think yeah, yeah, so okay. So these are going to be my DT objects. So if you look at this, okay. So later on, once we start creating these services, you would see what exactly I mean here by this bank response. You'd see how this guy is going to just come out. Okay. So we have this repository layer, and then okay. So the next thing is to go over to this service layer. So in here, I'll just create a package and add a class name. I'll just call it user service. Oh, this guy should be an interface. Okay. It's just going to contain some methods. So for example, the first method is going to contain is to create an account, right? Okay. So let's say create account is the method name. Okay. So this method name is going to need a response, right? Or it's going to need a return type. So the return type here is going to be of what? Type account response. What's the name of this response I created? This DTO class, bank response, right? So that's the kind of response I want all my services to return. So it will be bank response, this guy. Okay, so this guy is going to take in a parameter. So basically, don't forget this is the return type. It's going to take in a parameter. So I'm expecting that the user will send a request that is like this, which is what I have here. So this guy is going to take in user request as its parameter, user request. Okay, so then the next step is to have that implementation class. I'll call this a user service implementation. So this guy would now implement the user service. Okay, so since this guy is an interface, I have to implement all the methods in that interface and then click implement methods. So you can see create account number here, right? So yeah, so I've implemented the first method there, which is create account. So under this create account, so basically what I need to do is okay. So don't forget that in creating an account, you actually want to save the details of a new user into your database. Okay, creating an account is saving a new user into the DB. So the process of creating this new user is same as the process of instantiating a new is this process of instantiating a new user or instantiating an object of a user. So to do that, I will just so since I'm using builder pattern, I will just say user from that's the entity class dot builder, or let me say user. Okay, call this guy new user equals user dot builder dot build. Okay, so just for some good spacing in here in between this builder and build. So I'm going to be adding the different fields of this user entity that I want to save. So let's not make it, let's understand this clearly. What I want to do is I want to save a new user into my database, right? And this entity here is what is representing that database field. So it means I have to instantiate a new object of this entity guy. Okay, so instantiating that object means I need to be filling all of these individual fields here. So let me close all these guys. I want to have this user guy, yeah, close to me. Okay, so the process of instantiating a new user is the same as what? Filling all these instance, providing values to all these instance variables. So that's basically what I need to do here. So the first instance variable I want to fill based on this guy is to fill in the first name, right? So just add dot first name. So this first name is representing what? This field inside your username, right? Okay, dot first name, and then we are going to be doing what we are going to be get the value we are going to be getting the value of this first name is going to be provided by what the user request. Okay, so this will be user request dot what get first name. Okay, then the next field I want to provide is a value for its last name, right? So this will be user request dot get last name. Then the next one would not be other name. This will be user request dot get other name. Okay, and I can just come back here to check gender dot gender user request dot get gender. So I like to actually do create my objects in the order like this so that I don't end up missing out anyone. So then the next one would be address. Okay, dot address user request dot get address. Then the next thing is going to be state of origin. State of origin is going to take in user request dot get state of origin. Okay, so account number, right? So dot account number. So at this point here, we need to actually have a method that generates random account number. So inside this utils class, I'm going to have a new class. I'll call it account utils. Okay. So yeah, so I need to have a method that would handle the creation of account number for me here. And yeah, so let's get started here. So okay, so ideally in generating my account number, I want my account number to have the current year, to always begin with the current year, in this case which is 2023, right? And then any random 6 digits, right? Plus random 6 digits. So basically that's this is just what I need to do. So I need to concatenate, I have a way to concatenate the current year to any random 6 digits. That's basically my strategy. Now, when we talk of 6 digits, 6 digits are numbers between 100,000 and then 999,000, right? Okay, so let me have some variables. So let's say year. Okay, since I want to get the current year, right? So I'll just say year, current year will be year dot now. So this gives me the current year. Okay. Then the next step is the six random digits that I want to create, right? Like I said, the six random digits are always going to be from what? 100,000. And then what? They would end at what? 999,000. So not those six will always be within that range. So let's say int the minimum six digit number that we know of is going to be what? 100,000. Yes, I hope this is clear. Six digits, good. Then the maximum six digit number that I know of is going to be 999,000. Good. So what I need to do now is to now generate a random number, a random number between min and max. Okay. So to generate that random number, so let's say int random number would be equal to, so here I need to call on some math some I need to call on some maths random method. So there is this method in maths.random. Okay. Yeah, maths.random will generate any number between 0 and 9. Okay. So between 0 and 9, then let's go now and then say multiplied by max minus minimum plus 1. So so basically what we are doing is, like I said, max.random generates a number between 0 and 9. Okay, so now we are looking at what numbers do we want to generate. 999 minus 100,000. Okay, so and then plus 1. Okay, in here give helps us to handle that range, and then I'll just call this plus minimum. Okay, so this is a, but then I would encourage that we take a second look at this algorithm. Okay, so after I will then close all of this in a bracket and then call this method math.floor. Okay, so this guy would basically give me a double. Okay, so it's going to give me a double. So what I would just do is I would then cast it into what? Integer. Okay, so this helps me convert this double into what? An integer. Okay, so after doing that, what I need to do is now I need a way to convert this year into a string, and then to convert this number to a string, and then I would concatenate them together. So I would add that comment here, convert current year and random number to strings, then concatenate them together. Okay, so how do we then do that? So basically, I'll just create another variable. I'll call it string year equals string dot value of, okay, I'll just say current year. Good. Yeah, so this helps me to convert the current year into its equivalent string value. So I'll do the same thing for random number. I'll just say string random number. By the way, I do recall now that this algorithm is assuming that your the size of your account number is going to be 10 and it will never change from 10. So but then if you can, feel free to customize this example as much as you can. create the account number in a way that depicts the kind of account numbers you have in your country, for example. So, but here in Nigeria, we basically have 10-digit account number. So, I'm actually taking charge of that. So, you can see here that this one will give me 6 digits plus what? 4, which makes it what? 10. Okay. So, then random number will now be a string dot value of the random number here, which is this integer value I'm getting here. Okay. So to now append them, what I'll just do is I'll use a string builder in this case. String builder, let's say account number will be new string builder. So yeah, I'll just do account number. Oh, funny enough, I normally I should have created a method for this. So let me just do that. Public string. So this account number here is going to be, let me make it static. Okay, so account number is going to be a string, right? So I'll call this generate account number. Okay, so this method here, then everything I've done so far will just be inside that method. Sorry, I forgot I wasn't dealing with a method at all. So let me copy this guy, paste them here. Okay, so yeah, I'll just do account number dot append. What am I appending? I'm appending year, and then I'm appending another one again, which is what? Random number. Okay, so yeah, I can just return this guy. So don't forget that this guy is a string builder object, so you have to convert it to string. Just add to string and you are good. So yeah, okay, so yeah, I think we are good now. Yeah, okay, so this guy said I should replace string builder with string. Okay. Okay. So, well, anyway, let me just add this. I prefer the string builder method. So, yes. Yeah, so at this with this now we have a method that helps us generate our account numbers, right? Okay. So at this point, yeah, I'll just come in here and then my account number is going to be what? I'm going to call this static method from here, which is generate account number. So I'll just say account utils, which is the class that I created, right? This class here, account utils dot generate account number. So it means when you create a new object now, you can, when it comes to filling in this field or called account number here, right? You will then get this account details dot what generate account number. So I think we are good with the account number now. So the next step would now be email, right? So here I'll just say dot email. And then here I'll just say user request dot get email. Okay, then the next step would be, oh, sorry, I missed the account balance, right? Okay, so let me add that account balance. So account balance here. So since we are dealing with big decimal, you can't just pass in a zero here or you do 0.0, it wouldn't work. So what we'll just do is big decimal what? Dot zero. So if at any point you need to add another value of big decimal, so you could do big decimal. Oh, sorry, let me bring it out of here. This is just an example. You could do big decimal dot value of, and you pass in whatever value you want in here. So this is how you pass in values of a big decimal. Okay. So let me remove this. This is just an example. Okay. So we added email, right? Then phone number, alternative phone number, and status. So yeah, let me just add phone number. Let me add alternative phone number and then add the status. Okay, so phone number here is will be from the user request dot get phone number. Alternative phone number will be user request dot get alternative phone number, and then the status. So what I want to do here is, in most banks, when you create an account number, a status is given to your account number. Some could be restricted, some could be pending, some could be active, and so on. So, but for this example we are actually working on, I would call this guy, I would say active. So what this means is that right from when you create your account number, I want that account number to be active. You can credit it, you can debit it, and so on like that. So yes, I think we have been able to build our objects without forgetting anything. Okay, we've also generated our account number. We've set a default account balance as well on creation, which is zero. And then we've set a default status. So I think we are fine now. So since we are actually outcoding the status from the backend from the initial point, so I think I can come to user request and then remove the status. I don't need the status at this point. So remove that guy. Then we are good. So with this, we've been able to build an object of a new user. Okay, so anytime you're creating a new bank account for a user, so basically this is the first step. Okay, so then the next step here is I want to, okay, even before building this, I think I should actually do a validation to check if a particular user already exists. Okay, so let me just add that comment. Check the if user already has an account. Okay, so yeah, so I'm checking if the user already has an account. So to do that, I think the email is a very good way to get to know if the user already has an account. So the first to do that, actually, I need to actually create a repository method here. So I need to create a repository method to actually check if a record in a database exists. Okay, so this is going to be a boolean. Okay, is okay. Let's say exist by email. Good. Yeah, just a string email. Okay, so I'm going to use this method to check if a particular email address exists. So anyway, take note of the method of this particular naming method here. So if you're actually checking if something exists, this is how you do it: exist by, and then you get your different options. So if you type exist, so yeah, so if you do boolean, if you do exist by, so you can see different options, account number. You can also check by account number if an account number exists. Okay. So, but then let's start with checking if an email exists. So you come over here and then check. So and then see if um if so okay, before I move on. So from this user implementation, it's the user this user service is going to be talking to a database, right? So I need to actually inject the repository layer in here. So here I'll just do at auto wired and just add the user repository. So with this, I would now have access to the methods in the user repository. So then apart from that, here I'll just add this annotation on this class at service. Okay, so let's continue here. So I'll just do if user repository dot exists by mail. So which email am I checking? Whatever email the user provides. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to return a custom message, which is from what? Bank response. So let's look at the bank response. It's going to contain response code, response message, and an account info, right? Okay. So if the user already exists, I want to create like some custom messages that I'll be making use of. So to do that, I'll just do public, type the same account utils method, public static final string account exists. Good. So let's call this guy 001. Then another one for the message. static final string account exists message. All this guy, yeah, the user, this user already has an account created. So this provides exact error messages to need. So let's come in here. So in the case where your user exists, right? So the next step is to now build a response, the kind of response you want to return to your user at this point. So yeah, I'll just do user, what's that, bank response, right? Bank response equals bank response. I'm going to use that builder method again. Build. So the first one would be the response code, right? So the response code I'm going to send will now come from what? Account details dot account exist what code, which is 001. And the next one would now be response message, yes. And this will be account utils dot account exist message. Okay. So yeah, if that guy is, I'll just return the response. Okay. So yeah, so basically, I can actually remove this assignment here and then add my return statement. And then it means I have to remove this. And then yes, so we will be able to now throw this kind of response. And then at that point, I can just do account info and then set it to null. So meaning that the user who wanted to create an account does not have any account information. So yeah, okay, so in the case where the email doesn't exist, so this remaining code will then now proceed. So at this point, I just need to generate to create another response. Okay, so the response I'm going to return. Okay, the after before that, I would then need to save this user into a database, right? So here I will just do user save the user equals user repository dot save. Okay. So by just injecting user repository, I have access to many of these user method of the user repository JPA methods, and then yeah, I'll just pass in new user, right? Okay. So with this, I have my saved user. Then the next step is to now return a response. Okay, to return a valid response after doing that. So yeah, I'll just do return. What do I call that? Bank response.builder.build. So here I'll just build this response. I would say so response code. So this response code would just be to return a success message, right? So let me come in here and then add that message. Our public static final string account creation success. So let's call this one 002. And here we say public static final string account creation message. So we say account has been successfully created. Okay. So with this, I will just come in here and then response code would be what? Account details dot account creation success code, and then the next one will be the response message account utils dot account creation message. Okay, then I now need to build dot account info, right? So here at this point I now need to build an object of what? Account info. So I'll just do account info builder dot build. So in here, this guy needs to return an account balance. So I'll just do I'll get my account balance from where? The saved user here. Okay. So use user saved user dot get account balance. Oh, there's an error there. Account info. So I should make this return big decimal. Okay. So I guess that error should vanish now. Okay. Then the next one would be account number. To be saved user dot get account number. Then do account name. So the account name would now be a concatenation of saved user dot get first name plus concatenate the space plus saved user dot get last name concatenate space again, then saved user dot get other name. So it's just that procedure. So with this, we've been able to generate account number, and then I can run this guy again and see. Oh, before that, we need to actually create the controller. So I'll just say user controller. Okay. So yeah, let's say at annotate it at rest controller at request mapping. So then here I'll just have a slash API slash user. Okay. So yeah, I need to also auto wire the service. So I'll just say user service. So this guy will return a response, return a bank response, create account, okay, and then it will have a request body. The request body is going to be the request, user request. Okay, so then yeah, I'll just return my user service dot create account, then pass in my user request. So this guy will take in a post mapping. Yeah, good. So I can then run this guy now and then see how it works. So while this is running, I would want to open Postman. So I want to open Postman and then run a few tests. Okay, slash user, API slash user. Good. So API slash user. So yes, I have a sample request here. Okay. I think I'm not working with date of birth. Yes, I just need to confirm once again with my request. So the last guy is okay, good. So let me try to send this now and then see what I get. So here you can see the kind of response I get. You can see the kind of response. Okay. So you can see it gives me O2 account has been successfully created and so on. So you can see this is the happy case here. So what if I try to save the same user again? Okay. Okay, let me remove this guy. Don't need this. So what if I try to save this same user again with the same email address? Don't forget that we have done in from our code, we have actually ensured that this would fail and wouldn't work. So send this guy. So it says this user already has an account number, the account info is not. So just come back here now. Let's refresh this guy and then see. So we have this guy already saved. Okay. So if you follow the tutorial to this point, step by step, I believe there shouldn't be any issues. So at this point, we've done our user sign up. We've been able to create an account number. And then if you check here carefully, you can see that this is the account number generated 2023 and then another 6 digits after it. So yes, we'll call it a day for now. And then in our next class, we are going to do the gets. We are going to actually fetch all users from the database, fetch a specific user, and then we now add the name inquiry, balance inquiry, and if there's still time, we can add the credit and debit as well to this service. So, all right, I hope you followed carefully, and then hopefully you'd be back as well after this in the next recording for a continuation, and then you keep following until the end. So, like it's always said, it's little steps that actually would form our experience and knowledge as software developers. So, see you guys in the next tutorial. Bye for